The anime series begins by showing Ariadust Horizon, a beautiful girl, singing a melodious song at Okutama Cemetery. As it turns out, Horizon is not just any ordinary girl, but a bionic robot or humanoid android in the form of a waitress, working at a coffee restaurant in the floating city of Musashi. Each morning, she visits the cemetery to pay her respects to the souls who have passed away there. The story of humanity's journey in space began when they were forced to leave the Earth due to an unknown phenomenon. Desperate to find a new home, they returned to the Earth they had left behind, only to find that it was no longer habitable. However, they discovered that the Japanese nation was still habitable and built several floating cities, known as pocket dimensions, around Japan to accommodate the entire human population. The Japanese territory was protected by the Sacred Scripture Treaty, which ensured peace among the nations. But in the 1413 treaty era, the Unity Dimension began to invade Japan, dividing it into feudal power areas and attempting to expel the native Japanese population. As the 1648 treaty era approached, rumors of the destruction of the world and wars between nations began to spread, as the contents of the Sacred Scripture Treaty did not outline what would happen after 1648. The Japanese people lived in a floating city called Musashi City, constantly hovering around Japan and being monitored by the Pocket Dimension authorities. In Musashi City, the Japanese were determined to take back their homeland from the Pocket Union authorities. To prepare for this upcoming war, the Musashi Ariadust Academy's Supreme Federation began training tirelessly to increase their fighting abilities and combat strength. Leading their training was the skilled and experienced combatant, Tori Makiko. As a young woman with exceptional attacking skills, she was the perfect trainer to guide the Musashi Academy Federation in their journey to victory. One day, Makiko was leading a training session for the members of the Musashi Academy Federation. As she checked the attendance, she realized that Tori Aoi, the chairman of the Supreme Federation and student council president at Musashi Academy, was absent. Tori was known for his poor fighting skills and inappropriate behavior, often teasing the girls at school. Despite his absence, Makiko decided to start the training with a combat simulation exercise, tasking the students with hunting her down. The students eagerly tried their best to attack Makiko, but she effortlessly dodged all of their attempts. In the end, only one student managed to survive the exercise, while the rest gave up midway. After the exercise, the principal of the Musashi Academy, Sakai Tadatsugu, came to check on the students' progress. Makiko reported that the students had shown improvement in their skills, despite the low survival rate. Makiko, a skilled martial artist and instructor at the Musashi Academy, was approached by a man named Archdevil who challenged her to a fight. Makiko accepted the challenge, knowing it was an opportunity to teach her students some valuable fighting techniques. As the battle began, Archdevil launched a series of aggressive attacks, but Makiko expertly dodged and countered each one. The students of the academy watched in amazement at Makiko's impressive skills. Just as the training session was coming to a close, Tori arrived, making a grand entrance with an unusual appearance and a mischievous smile. Rather than showing any remorse for his tardiness, he cracked inappropriate jokes in front of everyone. Makiko had had enough of Tori's constant joking around. She asked him why he had failed to show up for the combat training simulation session. Tori nonchalantly replied that he had been busy watching adult movies with attractive women, which only served to further irritate Makiko. Instead of apologizing for his absence and behavior, Tori brazenly touched Makiko's breasts, causing everyone in the room to be stunned in shock. In an attempt to alleviate the tense atmosphere, a female student tried to lighten the mood by jokingly suggesting that they had defeated their coach because Tori had successfully touched her. Tori had always been a hopeless romantic, and on this particular day he announced to his friends and classmates that he planned to confess his love to Horizon, a girl he had been admiring from afar. His sister, Kimi, watched on with a mixture of sadness and resignation. Tori had never been able to move on from his former girlfriend, who had tragically passed away a decade earlier. As the meeting of the Musashi Academy Federation came to a close, tensions were running high, and Makiko, unable to contain her anger any longer, violently lashed out, sending Tori flying across the room. Meanwhile, in a small coffee shop not far from the school, Horizon could be found busily sweeping the courtyard and tending to the store. The world outside was a dangerous place, with nations locked in a never-ending cycle of warfare. Desperate to find a way to break the cycle, the countries of the Pocket Dimension had formed a treaty called the Joso Sensui, hoping to bring about a lasting peace. But despite their best efforts, the treaty had yet to bear fruit, and some leaders were beginning to contemplate repeating the mistakes of the past in order to strengthen their own power and territorial claims. The scene then shifts to Murayama Honda's house, where a young girl named Masazumi Honda is preparing to fulfill her duties as an elementary school teacher. Masazumi is the vice president of the student council at the Musashi Academic Center and the daughter of the Matsudaira clan leader, a family responsible for protecting the Makawa region. She is considered a successor to her father's duty and has the ambition to become a politician like him. Masazumi is always dedicated to her tasks at school. After finishing her teaching duties at the elementary school, Masazumi collapses in front of a coffee shop where her friend, Horizon, works. Yoshiki, who realizes that Masazumi has not had time to eat all day, helps her by providing food to re-energize her. Yoshiki and Masazumi have known each other for a long time, having both grown up in Makawa before moving to Musashi. Yoshiki is also aware that Masazumi is a student council administrator at the Musashi Academy. After finishing the food, Masazumi tells Yoshiki that she still has a duty to accompany Sakai to inspect a checkpoint in Makawa, and then she will visit her mother's grave. Yoshiki had a request from Masazumi to deliver some packed lunch to Tori at the academy. Tori had not visited Yoshiki's cafe in the past decade, but recently he had been coming more often due to his interest in the P-01 android girl Ariadust. Ariadust bears a strong resemblance to Tori's late girlfriend who passed away 10 years prior. Before Masazumi left, Yoshiki asked her to go to Remorse and conduct an investigation to uncover the truth about Masazumi's mother, who vanished suddenly. The scene shifts to Musashi Academy, where Makiko is lecturing about past wars to her students. She asks Suzumukai to provide further explanation on the material, but Tori interrupts by writing a questionnaire. Hades scolds Tori for disrupting the lesson, and Makiko asks Asuma to finish Suzu's explanation. Once the lesson ends, Tori announces to his classmates that he wants to throw a party to celebrate his declaration of love for Horizon. However, his friend Shiro Bertoni refuses to attend if the party is being held at a pricey venue. Makiko, aware of Tori's plans, suggests that he hold the party at the school and offers to do night patrols there. Excited by the idea, Tori invites his classmates to join him at the school for a ghost hunting party that night. Meanwhile, at the academy, a new student named Crown Prince Azuma from the Divine States enrolls. Makiko asks them to wait in another room and take care of the necessary paperwork in the teacher's office, as the lesson is still in progress. Masazumi meets Horizon again at Okutama Cemetery, where she is visiting her mother's grave. She asks what brings Horizon to the cemetery, and Horizon explains that she has a routine schedule for cleaning and maintaining the graves. Horizon then asks if Masazumi is visiting her mother's grave, and Masazumi confirms this before explaining her family history. She tells Horizon about the Honda family and reveals that her father once wanted her to undergo gender reassignment surgery in order to continue the family name. However, the operation was cancelled and Masazumi and her mother moved to Makawa for a few years. Unfortunately, her mother was killed and disappeared under mysterious circumstances. As Horizon and Masazumi continue their conversation, Horizon glances up at the sky and notices that a fighter plane named Strels has emerged from stealth mode and is flying above Makawa. Shortly thereafter, a plane belonging to the leader of Makawa, Matsudaira Motonobu, appears behind Strel's plane and makes an announcement to the citizens of the city. King Motonobu announces that he will be hosting a lively fireworks show this year and promises that the party will be unlike any other. While this is happening, Tori is writing a love letter to Horizon at the suggestion of his intelligent and talented ninja friend, Tenzo. However, instead of a sincere love letter, he writes a letter expressing his desire to engage in inappropriate acts with Horizon. Tori's sister, Kimi, even supports him in this. Sakai and his assistant, Nate Mito-Tsudera, come upon Tori and ask what he is writing. He candidly tells them that he is writing a love letter to a girl who looks like Horizon, and Sakai supports Tori's plan. Before Nate leaves with Sakai, she offers to help Tori, which excites him and prompts him to try to grope her breast. Nate, upset and offended by Tori's inappropriate behavior, slams him against a building in retaliation. On the other hand, Sakai and Masazumi arrive at a checkpoint in Makawa and see a prototype plane belonging to KPA Italia preparing to land in the city. Sakai tells Masazumi that some leaders from other cities have come to Makawa to discuss politics with King Motonobu. After conducting some supervision, Masazumi says goodbye to Sakai and tells him that she is going to study the Remorse Way in order to investigate something and understand what is happening in the world. Sakai gives her permission to do so. As Sakai makes his way to Musashi Academy, he meets his colleague Sakakibara Yasumasa walking with Honda Tadakatsu, a political official from Makawa. Upon hearing Sakai speak disrespectfully of the politician, the head of security for the Makawa government, Honda Futayo, threatens to attack him.
大体ろくなことしてペタリ一体どういうわけだ
Meanwhile, Tori's female friends are shopping for supplies for the celebration party that will be held at the school later that night. One of his colleagues is amazed that he is still able to focus on his love problems despite the chaos caused by the deadly sin weapons and various other disasters plaguing the world. As the chairman of the Supreme Federation of Musashi Academy and the Student Council, Tori should have his hands full with important matters at the academy. However, Suzu understands why Tori is so obsessed with the android girl who looks like Horizon. She explains that Tori was the happiest when he was with Horizon and always spoke highly of her kindness and beauty in front of others. Meanwhile, Margot Knight, a student at Musashi Academy, comes to Yoshiki's coffee shop and runs into Masazumi while she is selling her merchandise. Margot invites Masazumi to come to Tori's party at the academy that night, but Masazumi declines as she lives in Murayama and would have to pass through a guard post to get to Okutama. She is afraid that her father would be angry if she went to the academy at night just for a ghost hunting party and not for important business. Margot understands and regrets Masazumi's inability to attend, then hands her a package meant for the student council of Ariada's Musashi Academy. Margot has heard that Tori is currently on the Remorse Way and asks Masazumi to deliver the package to him when she passes by. Back at the Ariada's Musashi Academy dormitory, Azuma, who has just arrived, is confused to find that all the male rooms are full and he must share a room with a female student named Miriam. Miriam welcomes Azuma and tells him that she doesn't mind sharing a room as long as they respect each other's privacy. Meanwhile, Makiko approaches a pensive Kimi on a staircase and invites her to talk about their pasts. Masazumi, who has arrived at Remorse Way Road, runs into her father, Masanobu Honda, who is on a horse-drawn carriage. Masanobu warns Masazumi not to do anything in the forest and tells her to return home immediately. At the same time, Masazumi finally meets with Tori and hands him Margot's package. After receiving the package, Tori invites Masazumi to his party at the school that night before happily dancing away. Masanobu's friend looks at Tori and mentions that he didn't expect to meet the owner of Remorse Way Forest that day, confusing Masazumi. Masanobu's friend explains that 10 years ago, Tori's lover, Horizon Ariadust, died in that place in an accident, and the gravestone in the middle of the road is Horizon's. Masazumi is surprised to hear the name Ariadust, as it is also the name of an academy in Musashi City. It turns out that the name was taken from the original Horizon family, the Matsudairas. Horizon changed her surname to Ariadust after her father, Motonobu Matsudaira, became the leader of Makawa City in order to show her loyalty to the Covenant Age. Masanobu also tells Masazumi that Horizon was killed while she and her mother were on their way to the engine shaft in Musashi City, and that tomorrow is the 10th anniversary of Horizon's death. Upon learning about the accident that killed Horizon, Masazumi finally understands why the road is called the Remorse Way, as the word, remorse, can be translated as regret in Japanese and reflects Tori's feelings of blame. Many people have come to this place to seek the truth because Tori has always been trying to find out what really happened to Horizon. In the afternoon, a fighter belonging to the Makawa government security force, led by Futayo, flies past an aircraft belonging to a soldier from the Tres España army, Tachibana Monoshige, who is with his wife, Gin Monoshige. Tachibana is a student of the Tres España Academy assigned to the Tres España security forces to oversee the Makawa area and President Pope, the leader of KPA Italia. Gin tells Tachibana that she will always support him in any battle he faces and advises him not to give up. Later that evening, all of Tori's classmates gather at the academy for the planned ghost hunt. Tori, who was supposed to lead the event, has not yet arrived at school. Asuma tells the other students about rumors of an impending apocalyptic disaster and the existence of a mysterious spirit called the Lost Noble, rumored to be living in the academy building. The group is on edge when Kimi and Tori suddenly appear, having been too focused on the creepy story to notice their arrival. Tori and his friends begin their ghost hunt by exploring the dark and cold corridors of the academy building. Though the atmosphere is already tense and scary, Tori only adds to the fear by saying that they are sure to find a ghost. Asuma and several other students go on a ghost hunt in the library and manage to find two ghost figures that suddenly appear, which Asuma quickly captures with a magic attack. Other students, doing ghost hunts in other rooms, also use large attacks, causing chaos and destruction in the place. Shiro becomes suspicious of Tori and asks what he is really planning. It turns out that Tori had hired people to dress in ghost costumes and pretend to be ghosts in the school building to make the ghost hunt more enjoyable. However, instead of having a fun and enjoyable experience, they end up destroying some of the school's windows and ruining the atmosphere. The next day, Sakai and Sakakibara met up with Tadakatsu and Futayo at a local food store, where they enjoyed a round of sake together while chatting. Futayo, who had just been introduced to Sakai, asked Tadakatsu about the man's background. Sakai chuckled and explained that he was the former leader of the four noble kings of Matsudaira, and had attended the same school as Tadakatsu many years ago. Sakai then extended an invitation to Futayo to join the Ariadus Musashi Academy, explaining that it would give her the opportunity to be near Masazumi, who was currently serving as the vice chairman of the academy. However, Tadakatsu declined the offer on behalf of his daughter, explaining that he wanted her to focus on her duties as a colonel in the Makawa security force, and overseeing the affairs of Musashi City. He added that once Futayo had completed her responsibilities in the security forces, he would consider allowing her to pursue other interests, and suggested that Sakai holds onto his invitation until that time. After their meeting with Tadakatsu and Futayo, Sakai mentioned to the group that he had recently spotted an enemy fighter scouting out Makawa's territory, and urged Futayo to be vigilant. Sakai then turned to Sakakibara and asked him why someone had sent an android girl named P-01 to Musashi, and what their ultimate goal was. Sakakibara, however, sidestepped the question and inquired about the ghost rumor known as the Lost Noble. Later that afternoon, Kazuno, Tadakatsu's female assistant, reported to Mr. Motonobu that their preparations were complete and they could move forward with the plan for the fireworks show that evening. Mr. Motonobu asked Kazuno if Tadakatsu was truly committed to carrying out the mission, and Kazuno assured him that Tadakatsu would always be loyal to Mr. Motonobu until the end. Kazuno then requested that Mr. Motonobu prepare a spectacular fireworks show and execute a plan that would shock the entire world. That night, Sakai couldn't shake off a sense of unease and hurried to the Sakakibara residence to meet with his friend. However, when he arrived, he found that Sakakibara had disappeared without a trace, and his servant could only find a few letters left behind in his room. Determined to uncover the truth, Sakai searched Sakakibara's room and workplace, eventually discovering a secret code left behind by his friend. The code revealed that Sakakibara had been investigating the Nikio crest, a mysterious symbol that had appeared in connection with the Lost Nobles case. The Lost Nobles were a legend about people who had suddenly vanished or died under unexplained circumstances, leading some to believe that they had been killed by the ghost of the Lost Nobles. Sakakibara had apparently been trying to uncover the truth behind this disturbing mystery. Upon returning to the Ariadas Musashi Academy, the students were met with a stern lecture from Principal Yoshinao, who reprimanded them for the damage they had caused to school property and the general state of disarray that the school had been left in. Suzu, worried about the possibility of punishment, began to cry, while Tori tried to placate her, pretending to be unaware of what had caused the mess. That same night, a loud explosion suddenly rocked the guard post, causing Shiro to reach out to the security team to find out what was happening. However, there was no response from the security office, and the group was left in shock as a ghostly little girl appeared, crying and searching for her parents. As the ghostly figure materialized behind Azuma, Tori panicked and let out a blood-curdling scream, causing everyone in the room to jump in fear. In the meantime, Sakai discovered that Tadakatsu and Motonobu were planning to destroy Makawa City, the place they had sworn to protect, by melting the Earth's plates. He asked Tadakatsu why he would do such a thing, but Tadakatsu merely told him that it was all part of the Genesis Project, a scheme that Motonobu had been working on for a long time. Sakai decided to try and stop the plan but was quickly dissuaded by Tadakatsu, who threatened him with the dragonfly slicing weapon, a device that could destroy any object it was aimed at. Sakai then inquired if Tadakatsu was also responsible for the fire at the security posts, but Tadakatsu simply told him to leave and forget what he had seen. Tadakatsu declared that he and Motonobu would do whatever it took to bring down the forces of the Old Testament, and anyone who dared to defy Motonobu's will would be met with force. Sakai tried to reason with Tadakatsu, warning him of the dangers of his actions and asking how Futayo would cope if Tadakatsu were to be killed in the ensuing battle, but he paid no heed to Sakai's words and quickly left. Futayo, who was patrolling the skies with the Makawa security forces, witnessed the disaster unfold in Nagoya as magma began to spew forth from the castle. She quickly realized that this development could be used to the advantage of the Treaty-era troops, who might use it as an opportunity to attack Makawa. She ordered her crew to gather all available forces and prepared to strike back against the enemy. The enemy fired upon them, but they managed to hold them off with the use of a laser weapon. Meanwhile, on the Tres España fighter plane, Monoshige asked Gin why Motonobu would want to melt the Earth's platonic reactor, even though doing so would destroy Makawa. Gin admitted that she didn't have any answers, and only the natives of Makawa would have a true understanding of Motonobu's motives. As the Earth's platonic reactor reached critical levels, Masazumi took it upon herself to lead Horizon to safety. Along the way, she couldn't shake the feeling that Motonobu was behind the disaster, and if that was the case, she wondered what could possibly be his reasoning. Back with Futayo, reports began to come in that Motonobu and Kazuno were the masterminds behind the melting of the Earth's platonic reactor, leading her to suspect that Tadakatsu was also involved in the scheme. It became clear that the melting of the Earth's magma was not a natural disaster, but rather an artificial one created by Motonobu with the intention of destroying the Makawa region. A member of the Makawa security force mentioned that the Treaty-era force was likely to take advantage of the chaos and try to seize control of Makawa's position as the representative of Japan's eastern region, possibly even launching an invasion of Musashi City. Futayo was faced with a difficult decision: should she align herself with the Makawa security forces and the Treaty-era troops, or try to remain neutral and support both sides? She wasn't sure which option was the best, and ultimately decided to hedge her bets and remain neutral, as it was still unclear which side would come out on top. The night that was supposed to be a celebration for Makawa City turned into a nightmare, as the leaders of the city plotted to destroy it. Monoshige, who couldn't stand by and watch the destruction, tried to intervene and stop Kazuno and Tadakatsu using his weapon, the Lipi Kataripsi. The Lipi Kataripsi was one of the 8 deadly sin weapons, and Monoshige was a member of the group of 8 great dragon kings. He had been sent by the Tres España Fellowship to stop Tadakatsu and bring him to justice, but Tadakatsu was undaunted by the threat, armed as he was with the powerful dragonfly slicing weapon. The powerful dragonfly, capable of splitting any object within a 30-meter radius and featuring 2 additional functions. It was one of the most powerful weapons in existence. Monoshige declared his intention to save Makawa City, but Tadakatsu told him not to waste his time, as the city's leader had already decreed that it was to be destroyed. Motonobu, who was on stage at the time, announced on the monitor that the heroes had only 5 minutes to stop the destruction of Makawa City, leaving them little time to act. Monoshige asked Motonobu why he was so eager to bring about the destruction of Makawa City and sow chaos in the east of Japan. Motonobu nonchalantly replied that he wanted to put on an exciting and tense show for the world, presenting something truly dangerous. With a big smile on his face, he added that he wasn't just planning to harm the eastern region, but to bring about an apocalyptic disaster for all of humanity. Monoshige pointed out that the apocalypse could be averted if they used the 8 deadly sin weapons, but warned that doing so would likely spark a global conflict as everyone fought to possess them. Motonobu corrected Monoshige, saying that there were actually 9 deadly sin weapons, with the 9th being the weapon of jealousy, crafted by humanity itself. He explained that the weapon was created from the emotions of a woman and that the core of the weapon had been embedded into the automated doll body of Horizon Ariadust, also known as P-01. Upon hearing this news, Tori immediately raced to Horizon's side to protect her from the enemies, and was joined by his friends in the effort. The Covenant-Age troops issued orders for all their members to search for the 9th deadly sin weapon and to apprehend Horizon at all costs. Motonobu declared that a world war would ensue once Makawa was destroyed and that the eastern region would fall under the oppressive rule of the Covenant-Age forces. Monoshige vowed to stop Motonobu but was quickly arrested by Tadakatsu, who challenged him to a fight. The 2 men engaged in a fierce battle, each wielding extremely lethal weapons. Monoshige tried to take Tadakatsu down, but the older man proved to be a formidable opponent, and Monoshige struggled to find an opening. In the end, Monoshige was seriously injured by his own weapon, and Tadakatsu took possession of it while Monoshige lay helpless on the ground. After the fight was over, Kazuno asked Tadakatsu to kill her, and he obliged by throwing her body until it was destroyed. Gin arrived soon after to take Monoshige's body away, but before they left, Tadakatsu gave her the dragonfly slicing gun in exchange for Monoshige's deadly sin weapon. Meanwhile, Masazumi was still trying to lead Horizon to safety, but the Tres España plane had managed to track their location. Tori and his friends were also stopped by Tres España soldiers, preventing them from rescuing Horizon. As all this was happening, the commander of the Peace-era forces announced that the eastern region was now under the jurisdiction of KPA Italia. Tori attempted to fight the soldiers in order to rescue Horizon, but Masazumi intervened, knowing that they were no match for the enemy army. As Horizon was being taken away, she handed a notebook over to Masazumi before being escorted out by the enemy. Later, the rulers of Makawa demanded that Horizon take her own life as punishment for her role in their major defeat. Meanwhile, Monoshige, unconscious and unaware of the events that had transpired, was informed by Gin about the tragedy in Makawa and Horizon's punishment. After the eastern region was successfully taken over, Sakai and several other high-ranking officials were placed under house arrest. They were guarded by 2 android girls, Asakusa and Shinagawa. Soon after, Galileo, the chairman of the Padova Academy and the vice president of KPA Italia, came to greet Sakai. The Italian Prime Minister, Innocentius, also visited and explained his plan to take over the eastern region from the Covenant-Age forces and make it the new representative of Makawa. He proposed using Sakai on the front lines of the fight against the Covenant-Age troops, armed with a deadly sin weapon. Meanwhile, at the Ariadust Musashi Academy, Heidi began to explain the current situation facing Musashi. Tori sat silently on his bench, his head lowered in despair upon hearing the news of Horizon's punishment. Mito was also meeting with Musashi's elite nobility to discuss their next steps. Back at the academy, students heard rumors that the men of the Treaty Union were planning to use Masazumi, a member of the Honda family, as a pawn. This caused concern among the students that Masazumi might side with the Treaty Union and become their enemy, leading to the complete rule of Musashi by the Treaty Union. The Musashi Academy students were determined to fight the Treaty Union and save Horizon from the death penalty, but they needed more information on the Treaty Union. During their discussion, Heidi asked Shiro, who was busy trading shares, to explain the consequences of opposing the Union agreement. Shiro explained that Musashi City would have difficulty obtaining food supplies at any port, and that their reserves of resources would only last for 2 weeks. He suggested that they try to persuade Masazumi to join their cause so that they could still receive supplies and arms assistance when fighting against the United States Treaty. Shortly after, Makiko arrived and assigned the students the task of writing an essay on what they would do after watching a live broadcast. In the broadcast, the Futayo troops and the Tachibana-gin troops faced each other, discussing their next steps. Futayo suspected that the people of the eastern region would surrender to the United States Treaty, but she wanted to prove that the region still had strong fighting power and armaments. She decided to ally with the Tachibana-gin army to defend the eastern region, and Monoshige returned the weapons belonging to Futayo's father as a sign of his acceptance of the invitation to cooperate. After watching the broadcast, Makiko asked all the students to write their essays and read them out loud, one by one. Makiko asked Suzu to read her essay, but Suzu was too embarrassed to do so, so Asuma offered to read it for her. After Suzu's heartwarming essay was read, all the students were moved by her strong desire to save Horizon. Tori, who had been silent until then, suddenly stood up with a cheerful expression and announced that he was planning to save Horizon as well. It turned out that he had been bowing his head all day not because he was sad about Horizon's fate, but rather because he was reading an adult magazine that he had hidden under his desk. Tori admitted that he was thinking about tactics to attack the Treaty Union troops, but Makiko, who was already upset with Tori's inappropriate behavior, immediately kicked him and sent him flying into the next class. Tori was recently convicted for being caught in a compromising position in front of the class. In response, Shiro proposed that the Student Council of Musashi Academy hold a vote to remove Masazumi, the current vice president, in order to convene a special student meeting. He believes that swift action is necessary in order to save Horizon, Musashi, and the eastern region. While all of this was happening, Horizon was on the investigation ship, conversing with a waitress about her dream of running a cafe and living a peaceful life in Musashi City. The following day, Masazumi learned of the students' plan to dethrone her as vice president of the student council. Masanobu advised Masazumi to consult with the other students at the academy before making any decisions, ensuring that the outcome would be in the best interest of Musashi. Masazumi then paid a visit to Musashi Academy to meet with Mito and discuss their next steps. While all of this was going on, Azuma was focusing on caring for the ghost of a young girl who had previously appeared in the academy building. He took her to a hostel so that she could rest. Not long after, Miriam approached Azuma and asked him what it was like to be the father of a young girl. Upon seeing Miriam's sudden arrival, Azuma was surprised and immediately apologized for using Miriam's mattress as a bed for the ghost. Miriam didn't mind but was concerned about the bodyguards and servants who were guarding their room doors 24 hours a day. Azuma reassured her that he had never invited royal guards to their residence and had left royal life behind in order to live a normal life like other ordinary residents. After this conversation, Miriam informed Azuma that her classmates were holding a special meeting to discuss the actions to be taken by Musashi and the eastern region, and asked where he stood on the issue. Azuma explained that as the son of the Emperor of Kyoto, he couldn't interfere with the problems of the students at Musashi Academy, as it could have significant consequences. The following day, the students at Musashi Academy held a special meeting, with Mito and Naomasa, the representative of the Provisional Council, supporting Masazumi. Masazumi argued that they needed to make peace with the Provisional Council, or they would risk going to war with the United States of America according to the treaty. Not long after, Shiro arrived with Tori, and announced that the purpose of the meeting was to determine the position of Musashi Academy. They would simulate a political debate between the Treaty Union and the Musashi parties to find a strong justification for saving Horizon. Shiro explained that in this political negotiation simulation, Masazumi would represent the Union agreement, while the students at Musashi Academy would represent Musashi. The outcome of this debate would determine whether Horizon lived or died, and whether the new leader of Musashi would be accepted. If the Treaty Union parties won, the Musashi side would accept Horizon's death and the new leader of Musashi. However, if the Musashi side won, they would be permitted to save Horizon. In the first match, Naomasa, representing the Treaty Union parties, faced off against Shiro, representing the Musashi side. Tori chose Shiro for the first match because he hated him and wanted to get rid of him. However, Shiro was confident in his ability to win the fight easily. Naomasa fights using a contract robot named Jizuri Suzaku, while Shiro receives assistance from a cute contract animal named Heidi. Shiro also enters into a contract with a trading god called Sanct, allowing him to exchange power for currency. After an intense battle, Shiro emerged victorious, and the Musashi side gained a point over the treaty union. In the second round of the fight, Mito, representing the treaty union, was pitted against Suzu, an ordinary civilian without any fighting skills or weapons. As a knight, Mito couldn't bring herself to attack Suzu and decided to give up and join the Musashi side. In the third round, Masazumi engaged in a debate with Tori, who announced that he no longer wanted to save Horizon, causing shock and surprise among the other students. Tori asked Masazumi if there was any benefit to Musashi City in saving Horizon and fighting against the treaty union, as he didn't know what to do. Masazumi explained that by saving Horizon, Musashi could defend its sovereignty and hold power alongside other countries. To gain sovereignty, they would need to declare their independence to the world and have a leader to govern the government. Therefore, Masazumi hoped that Tori would make the right decision for Musashi and Horizon, as the future of the region rested on the shoulders of Tori and the other academy students. Masazumi also pointed out that the eastern region had lost many of its inhabitants and territories, and saving Horizon would prove Musashi's strength in battle and allow them to defend the sovereignty of the eastern region and Musashi itself. Upon hearing this, Tori realized that they had no choice but to fight against the treaty union in order to defend Musashi and the eastern region. He then asked why they were saving Horizon if she had been punished by the treaty states to end her own life. Masazumi explained that Horizon should not be held responsible for the defeat of Makawa, as Motonobu should be held accountable for the destruction of Makawa. Based on the results of the political negotiations, Masazumi suggested that the treaty states reconsider their actions. Masazumi believed that the states parties to the covenant were attempting to exploit the tragedy in Makawa, but President Pope denied these allegations, stating that Horizon had been chosen as the leader of the population due to the history desired by the covenant era. During the intense debate between Masazumi and President Pope, Tori took the inappropriate action of touching Masazumi's breasts, causing her to freeze in shame. Tori used this opportunity to express his support for Masazumi's idea of saving Horizon and declared that Musashi would defend the eastern region. Seeing that they were serious, even President Pope sent Galileo to confront the students at Musashi Academy. However, Tori was able to thwart Galileo's attack and Masazumi survived. Futayo also arrived on the scene to assist the students in defeating Galileo. The fight between Futayo and Galileo was short-lived, as King Yoshinao, the leader of Musashi City and the principal of Musashi Academy, intervened and stopped them both. After Galileo and Pope left the meeting, Futayo challenged the other students at Musashi Academy to a one-on-one duel. Kimi confidently volunteered to fight Futayo, despite only being skilled in a dance style of fighting that involved avoiding the opponent's attacks. Much to everyone's surprise, Kimi was able to last longer than expected, and her dance style proved effective in avoiding Futayo's attacks. During the fight, Kimi was reminded of her past and saw how Tori, who had been deeply depressed following Horizon's death, needed help moving on with life. She resolved to do her best to wake Tori up. After failing to defeat Kimi, Futayo realized that she needed to assist the students of Musashi in saving Horizon, as a talented ninja like herself was meant to serve a wise leader. After the Musashi Academy team emerged victorious, Yoshinao recognized their greatness and appointed Tori as the second leader of Musashi. Tori took on the role of leader and began to devise a plan to gain the sovereignty of the eastern region and save Horizon. Each student who participated in the fight was assigned a task to ensure the success of their attack plan. After all the members of the Supreme Federation of Ariados Musashi had gathered, Neshinbara, the Student Council's Secretary of Strategy, found a safe path for them to reach the battlefield. She conducted an analysis to determine the number of enemy soldiers and the structure of the enemy's territory to facilitate an ambush. Upon arriving at the battlefield, Tori foolishly opened the enemy's defense gates without any protective shields or weapons, causing the enemy troops to attack him immediately. Fortunately, reinforcements arrived in time to save Tori and protect him from the enemy's arrow fire. To avoid enemy fire, Tori and several other members took cover behind the body of a fighting robot named Adele. Persona, a member of the Musashi Federation, also used Adele's robot body as a shield, pushing it toward the enemy troops. At the same time, Musashi's archers fired a barrage of arrows at the enemy forces, while Asuma defended against airstrikes using high-powered arrows. Once the enemy's fighters had been successfully taken down, Margot and her girlfriend Malga Naruse aided Asuma in defeating the remaining enemy aircraft using their magic powers. However, the enemy's war god attacked too fast and Margot and Malga Naruse were both struck down. The Musashi War Admiral tried to rally the two witch girls and the citizens fighting for Musashi's sovereignty. Thanks to their enthusiasm and support, Margot rose again and began emitting counterattacks using magic sticks until the god of war was destroyed. Meanwhile, now Masa and Mito began decimating the enemy army on the ground using iron chains, taking down most of the troops. Afterward, Mito invited Tori to go to the enemy base camp through another route, while now Masa would continue fighting the enemy troops on the front lines. As Tori and Mito approached the enemy base camp, they were stopped by President Pope wielding the deadly sin weapon known as Stasius Pornea, or Eve's Lust weapon. This weapon is capable of shutting down the functions of all opposing weapons, and President Pope was able to destroy the functions of the Musashi army's weapons in a single attack. Tori asked Asuma, who had the power of the Asuma Shrine, to increase his power and channel it to the entire Musashi army. After the army's strength and energy were replenished, Tori asked his friends who would be willing to stand up to President Pope. Masazumi confidently volunteered to fight against President Pope, while a student named Noriki offered to fight Galileo in a one-on-one duel. The fight began with Noriki struggling to compensate for Galileo's enormous strength, as Galileo easily avoided his attacks. However, Noriki's fighting spirit never wavered and he continued to do his best against his opponents. After reading Galileo's movement patterns, Noriki was finally able to land repeated blows on Galileo's body until he collapsed after a hard blow to the face. Masazumi also emerged victorious, defeating President Pope, while Futayo fought desperately against Monoshige, trying to persuade him not to attack Musashi. When Monoshige insisted on attacking Musashi, Futayo rose again and aggressively attacked Monoshige with the dragonfly slicing weapon. After a fierce fight, Futayo emerged victorious and defeated the knight using the deadly sin weapon, Lipi Kataripsi. When Tori arrived on the investigation ship and attempted to pick up Horizon, he was surprised to find that she didn't recognize him. Tori tried to reignite Horizon's feelings by expressing his love for her, but as a robot doll with artificial emotions, Horizon was unable to understand Tori's feelings of love. Undeterred, Tori tried to teach Horizon about the true meaning of love, hoping that she would accept him and join him. Meanwhile, Futayo and the rest of Musashi were working to stop President Pope and the enemy troops from disrupting Tori's meeting with Horizon. As Tori accidentally touched Horizon's breast, she suddenly remembered her childhood memories of meeting Tori for the last time. Feeling guilty and responsible for Horizon's death, Tori continued to blame himself. When Horizon asked why Tori loved a robot like her, Tori replied that he simply wanted to be the best partner for her. Convinced by Tori's words, Horizon decided to accept him and they quickly left the investigation ship. Unfortunately, President Pope sealed off access to the plane, trapping Tori and Horizon inside. Mito managed to rescue them using iron chains, allowing them to escape just before the enemy soldiers could capture them. As the Musashi army prepared to head back to Musashi in their fighter aircraft, they were intercepted by KPA Italia aircraft, which threatened to fire missiles at them. However, Tori and Horizon were able to use Horizon's deadly sin weapon to destroy the enemy aircraft, and in the process, Horizon regained all of the memories and feelings that had disappeared over the years. After their long struggle to save Horizon and defend Musashi was successful, Tori asked Horizon to sing a victory song for all of them. The anime ends with Tori and Horizon reuniting as lovers, watched by the entire Musashi Academy team. The moral of the story is that we should never give up on fighting for and protecting our loved ones, because if we give up too soon, we may lose the chance to be reunited with them forever.